Hello and welcome. My name is Jevgenij Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. On the 26th of October, following the mass arrival of weather balloons carrying contraband cigarettes, Lithuania closed its border with Belarus. The border crossings will remain closed until at least 30th of November. It is worth noting that Belarusian propaganda reacted very strongly to the closure of the border. And today, we will discuss this aspect of the whole story with our guest, board member of Civic Resilience Initiative, Lukas Andriukaitis. Lukas, glad to see you in our studio, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
How would you assess the reaction of, well, maybe first Belarusian and then Russian propaganda to the news of the closure of Lithuanian-Belarusian border?
Yes, I think the response was quite fast, and quite a few narratives were focused on this issue, and by the fact that it was so vast and fast, I think it was a point of pain for them. It seemed like the closing of the border, and especially the question of the Kaliningrad transit, whether or not Russian or Belarusian cargo going there, seemed to have touched the right nerve. And the narratives were quite...
Which ones caught your eye in specific?
Mine were...
Which ones are your favorite?
Yeah, my favorite was the questioning of the fact whether or not the balloons are flying or not, that it's the Lithuanian invention.
Okay.
This one was quite interesting, right? Saying that, oh, those Lithuanians are, you know, making a story.
My favorite was that Lithuanians themselves are, well, letting those balloons in the air. That's right.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because, like, since Belarusian propaganda oftentimes follows the Russian methods very closely, it's interesting to see how many similar yet slightly different narratives usually appear, and as a matter of fact, usually those that get the most traction, those follow, right? Either they focus on what is happening on the ground, or the narratives that are getting a lot of traction on the comment sections and seem to get the most response from the public. So,
okay, let's focus on the ones that caught the most reaction from the public in social networks.
Yes.
Which ones were those?
I think overall the ones that focused on Lithuania being as the most aggressive, or being the bad neighbor, or trying to find ways how to hurt the bilateral relationships between Russia and Lithuania, between Belarus and Lithuania, those seem to have caught the most attention. Actually, even on Lithuanian social media too. So if you go on the more radical or fringe part of the internet on Lithuanian language. So all these individuals that I call bad influencers, who pretend to be free thinkers and, you know, telling the truth,
but actually are pro-Russian.
Exactly,
pro-Russian.
So those were actually focusing quite a bit on showing Lithuania as incompetent,
as a hostile state,
but also incompetence, showing that, you know, they're so short-sighted.
We will come back to that section for sure. In your opinion, what was the main aim of this hybrid attack?
Again, I'm not representing intelligence community. I can only see it from open source and more through the scope of this information. So I can only share what is my personal belief based on the facts that I can see as a civilian. It seems like it most likely is two-way street. One is, of course, the contraband and receiving money out of it for the Belarusian regime, which is a public it's a public mystery that the regime owns the tobacco factory, and they're getting quite a bit of...
And there's another fact that we have to mention here, is that that tobacco factory produces 4 times more than the citizens of Belarus do smoke.
Exactly.
In fact.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the actual factory is very close to the border as well. It's in the Grodno region.
Is that just a coincidence?
Most likely.
Okay, probably.
Most likely. So most likely there is contraband, and the fact that again from media we hear that there is a good chance that only now we're able to see a broader picture as a state, so we weren't as focused on this threat. So there's likely, it's not the first year that those balloons are flying, but the intensification of of those flights most likely are connected with political issues too. So they tried it to reach certain political goals. Since we built a fence to protect it, they are looking for other ways how to pick our nerves. So it was drones, right? So with drones we also have had issues. Now
we manage
balloons.
That's right.
Now we have balloons. So whenever we plug a hole somewhere, they are looking for a new way to come in and pick on our nerves. And my reading is that it's because of our strong foreign policy, meaning that we have very clear, we're always supporting bigger sanctions, we're always supporting Ukraine, we're sort of pushing them in the direction that it is hard for them to be at, and they're trying to find ways how to approach and how to touch our society.
Okay, in your opinion, what could have we done except closing the border? Could have we done something else?
I think the sanctions, the sanctions for the Belarusian regime, for now, they seem to have been in a position that they're sort of separate from Russia, right? So they're sort of the lesser evil between the two. And I think both the United States and the European Union has been way more lenient towards the Belarusian regime, sort of hoping.
Well, looks like they have a kind of a dialogue.
Yeah, exactly.
If we talk about those releasing of political prisoners.
Exactly. So they all seem to be in a sort of separate position for a little bit, and I feel like focusing on the sanctions on that regime too might be a very strong message, and also the Kaliningrad transit. I know that there's some discrepancies between whether or not it's Russian or Belarusian cargo, but the very fact that our diplomats have raised the issue that is on the table to restrict the transit. There's been a very strong reaction. Yeah, it was a strong signal from our side and a very strong reaction from the other side, of course, saying that it's almost a declaration of war towards Russia and whatnot. Meaning, the stronger the reaction, we can estimate that the right nerve, the right places the right buttons have been pressed.
Okay. Since you've mentioned our officials, there's another question then. So how would you rate our government and institutions' communication against the backdrop of this, hybrid attack? And what could be done better?
Sure. Again, I'm not a big expert on what can be done in these kind of situations on the political level. I think the best rule to follow is always to tell the truth and to say it as loud as possible. So I think to a lesser or a higher extent, this has been done by the government. The issue was not put silence. The airports, however hard it is, have been closed because of the hazard, right, to our passengers. So I think the government is doing what it can, but what to do better, I guess that the rule to follow is to be as open with the public as possible. The public doesn't.
In order for the public not to get answers from some dodgy sites.
Exactly.
Put it that way.
Exactly, and also the public doesn't like the feeling of being left in the
shadows.
In the shadows, exactly.
That's right.
Being treated as a
I do agree.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. Okay, let's come to the funnier side. So Alexander Lukashenko stated earlier that Lithuanians themselves organize cigarette smuggling across the border using balloons. So we've already spoke about that. He also literally defended the smugglers, saying that people had a business and Lithuania had, literally killed that business. So what's your take on that? Is this some kind of a agony from a old dictator? What's your take?
Yeah, to some extent, but also I feel like these are the narratives that are easily understood by the common folk in Belarus, right, and by the ones that they're trying to reach, and also to a broader extent, this is like a very sort of old-fashioned Soviet figure understanding of the world, right?
What's bad? We're just literally supporting business.
Exactly, everybody wins.
On both sides, in Lithuania and in Belarus as well.
Exactly, it's a very entrepreneurial, it's like business out of nowhere. But in reality, I think it's a mix. I think it's a bit of an understanding as a Soviet figure, but also it's something that the common folk, the ones that they're trying to reach, understand, like a common Belarusian again, not to speak in everyone's name, but like I think that the broader public sees this as a perfectly understandable argument. What's the damage, right?
And nothing to think about.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So again, in the beginning, you've mentioned those pro-Russian activists, pro-Russian, pro-Belarusian. You call them whatever you like. So they said that Lithuania is crippling itself with such decisions like closing the border, and all of this compromises the government and causes real physical and material damage. So what would be your response to that?
No, it's kind of silly. Like I don't understand what do they even mean by material damage. But in reality, the
like literally Lithuania is losing money. Probably
No.
he meant that that person meant that Lithuania is losing money in logistics business.
Yeah, on the economic narratives, it was always the same. We heard exactly the same when the borders with Russia were closed. We heard the same narratives regarding Kaliningrad transit. We're hearing the same narratives now with Belarus. Of course, no business is worse than business, right?
Sure.
That's like completely understandable. But focusing only that and not seeing the bigger picture is a very common propaganda tactic, right? You take a full picture, you only slice the part that makes sense to you, and you only talk only about it. And if you listen only about it, it makes sense. But once you step a few steps backwards and you see the bigger picture, then this sounds silly, right? Like
this is
like economics can never be an answer to a hostile state that is risking the lives of our passengers and of our nationhood. Like it's not smart to talk about economics when it's a security issue.
Okay, well, my last question then, regarding that transit to Kaliningrad region. So against the backdrop of this whole situation with the balloons, our president, the president of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda, also spoke about banning transit to Kaliningrad region. And Kremlin did not leave that unnoticed.
Of course.
And Dmitry Peskov reacted like, I guess, that day, that same day.
Yeah.
So what could you say about Russian propaganda's reaction to Lithuania's closure of Lithuania and Belarusian border?
It was very hostile. It was very hostile, and it's all from economic factors to actually security factors, almost to threatening that it's like a sign of war towards Russia, and the propaganda doesn't differentiate between Russian cargo or Belarusian cargo. This is like a good opportunity for them to show something very flashy and to become show themselves as a strong man. But it shows that overall the transit of Kaliningrad is a very
painful thing,
sensitive question,
especially
having in mind that you cannot provide as much cargo via the sea, and the sea is as someone calls it these days, the NATO Sea. The NATO Sea. There's no easy way to fly there anymore for passengers, right? You need to do circling around. Yes. So naturally, this is like one of the last connections to them, and I think that the regime fears it because the people of Kaliningrad most likely would not take it very easily, not to receive enough cargo and not to receive the passengers, right?
Well, what's your? I don't like any predictions. I guess you don't like them as well, because you can never actually predict,
of course,
especially in these turbulent times. But still, what are your predictions for this whole situation?
I hope that this measure will be kept. Personally, as a citizen, the faster we take measures to solve it, the faster this problem is solved, from the foundations, the better it will be for us. Because asking for them to stop is not an option, because they will not.
Lukas, thank you for joining us today, and I really hope to see you in our studio once again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was a board member of Civic Resilience Initiative, Lukas Andriukaitis. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.